Okay, our last case study presentation for the afternoon is on acquisition and consolidation strategies in aged care, navigating growth and optimisation. Tim Humphries, the Chief Executive Officer of Homestyle Aged Care Services. Tim is the CEO, has been in the role for over 10 years and has over 20 years of health experience, including 17 years within aged care. Prior to Homestyle, Tim may recognise some of you as the CEO of Provider Assist, large aged care consulting service with extensive business experience. He's held roles within finance, up to CFO, IT, up to CIO, project manager recruitment, and CEO most recently, across a wide variety of industries within privately owned, publicly listed and not-for-profit organisations. There's about another 12 pages I can keep going, but let's welcome Tim to the stage.
Thank you, Luke. I did ask you to cut that short. Shorter next time, please. Thanks for having me today. I just wanted to acknowledge Uncle Alan's welcome to country this morning. I thought that was bloody great. I'm not going to attempt to do anything like that, but I really enjoyed it. I just want to start with this picture, or number of pictures. There's a few people in there that are very dear to me. But I just think it's important that we understand that aged care can be fun. There's a photo there of a race car that we sponsored. That came about by one of our residents who one day said, "Do you reckon you could throw me some money?" And I said, "What for?" He said, "I'm the team manager for a race car on the weekends, and I'm just wondering if you could help out." So Ray, who's standing in the hat next to the picture to the left of the car, he's still the team manager of a race car. And that particular picture is another one of our residents who did a hot lap around Winton Raceway. So we have some fun. There's some ladies there folding clothes for Geelong mums, which is an awesome thing that we do down in the Geelong area. We sponsor awards with Deakin Uni for nursing students, which we recently did. I got to meet Maggie Beers, that was bloody great. I think more broadly, the smiles on the faces of people, we don't get to see that as often as we should, so I'd encourage you all to do a bit more of that in your day jobs. You can probably all read that. I think pretty much we all know the environment that we're in at the moment. There's opportunities, there's threats. There's all sorts of fun things that we could have a look at, whether we buy, sell, or keep doing what we're doing. I'm going to just run through this relatively quickly. A lot of it you probably know. And given that James rightly says this is supposed to be a case study, I'll bring to the conversation some of the things that we've done, because we've touched on a little bit of each of those things through the last few years. These are probably the options that we've chosen to pursue: grow, sell or maintain. And I think realistically, it took a consultant to come in to talk to our board to come to that conclusion, which is probably pretty obvious to everyone in the room. But I think each of those at the moment has its own, I guess the opportunity cost for each of them at the moment can be significant. So I'll talk through that a little bit as well. That's a picture from Dr. Zeus, and for those of you who know the Lorax, this is a point where the Lorax is asking about biggering. So I would challenge you all to maybe pick up a book of the Lorax and have a read through that, because getting bigger for the sake of being bigger is not necessarily a good strategy. And the ways we can obviously grow through acquisition. In Resi, we can build. Obviously we can extend our existing services, and we can look at complementary services, which is something that a lot of providers are now doing. The acquisition part's a really interesting one, and I've had a number of conversations with bankers and boards over the last few years, and the banks particularly get pretty spooked when you start talking about acquisition. And they're talking largely about culture, but I think realistically from some of the opportunities we've looked at, buying someone else's problem is not something we want to do in the current environment. With the regulation, the workforce issues that we're dealing with, taking on someone else's problems, whether that be a refurbishment, whether that be a poor culture, is something that you don't want to do. Importantly, the business case is a good one. I think there's a lot of things that we can look at acquiring, and sometimes they might look good on paper, but you've got to get through a fairly decent process to arrive at whether it actually is a good idea. And that due diligence process has become increasingly complex. Data rooms of significant amounts of information are now the norm, rather than the significantly less info we looked at years ago. The build case is an interesting one, and for us, we've got two greenfield sites that we have gone through planning on. We thought the planning would take a little longer than it has, and we're now at a point where we need to consider going through the process of a building permit. But I don't know if any of you have tried to put a business case up to a board about constructing a new resi home at the moment. The old number of 250, 300 now is anywhere between 5 and 600. And I don't think I need a calculator to work out that business case doesn't quite work with the current funding and the current operating results. The cost of capital is a big too. I mean, obviously with significantly high interest rates at the moment, or if you get into bed with someone who's happy to loan you money even higher than bank interest rates, that cost of capital is really important. And I think that's probably something in all the regulatory changes that we've looked at over the last little while. That cost of capital piece seems to be the missing link that no one's really considered, which also leads to what's a reasonable return in our industry. The build case also requires a review of competition in the area. I think that's a tricky one. I think the advantages of building somewhere where there's old homes is high because those old homes are possibly not going to be around forever. But the other thing is, how do you know whether anyone else is proposing to do the same thing as you in the same geography? So getting hold of planning data and understanding what others are doing in your area is a pretty important piece of work you do before you start turning soil on a $40, $50 million project. Extending is something that we've done quite a bit of over the last few years. We've turned 60-bed homes into 120-bed homes. We've added rooms on where we've had shared rooms. We've turned them into single rooms. So that's an easier way of doing it, but it is disruptive to the residents that live there. So you've got to plan that really carefully. Obviously demand's important, but I don't know. I think demand's going to be the least of our worries. I think a bigger part of the demand problem is wait list management, and that's coming to an aged care home near you very soon. And as I said before, that competition review is really important, and the same as a new build. What other developments are around? Growing complementary services is something we've done. We teamed up with Concentric. They run a rehab program, and it's a ripper. So basically, the program was designed to maintain people's mobility. As it was explained to me in about 2 minutes, and I said that works for me. It's basically if you come into residential aged care, your mobility and dexterity basically declines. Their program works on maintaining that mobility and dexterity the residents arrive in our care with, and we've got great feedback, and they're doing a good amount of research to support the program. So we're now growing that in a few other homes. It's a little bit tricky to retrofit. They want a reasonable amount of land to do it, but it's a really worthwhile service, and I think that probably sits well with all of you. You're not going to do something that doesn't benefit the residents you care for. The other thing that we've also looked at is just reviewing all of those people we outsource stuff to, and considering whether we could bring that in-house. We had a brief look at physios and realised that trying to employ a physio to recruit physios was hard enough for a physio business, so why would we think we could do that? We've worked pretty hard on reducing agency by implementing skills internally that pretty much replicate what an agency does, and we've not travelled really down the additional services path. Our services are in Metro Melbourne, but out of Metro Melbourne and Geelong, and trying to justify additional services to the socio-economics in our area, we've just sort of found challenging because you've got to demonstrate value that people want to pay for. And apart from Wi-Fi and phone that we can provide relatively easily because the infrastructure is already there, we've struggled to find some of those other hotel-type services that we think the residents in our care would pay for. But I think that vertical integration is something that we all should be considering, because I think at the moment residential aged care particularly doesn't stack up as a standalone service and hasn't for a number of years. Sale is another good one. In our instance, we had an older home. We've got two older homes, one of which we recently sold. We had to close the home. It was end of life. We tried to sell it. Got advice that no one would buy it. So fortunately, through that process, we engaged an agent who's well known to the industry in Melbourne, and he said, "You're not going to be able to sell that, but guess what? Someone's opening a brand new home around the corner, and they might be willing to talk to you about taking over the residents and the staff together." And having closed homes previously that were end of life, that was the biggest question everyone asked. The residents will say, "What's going to happen to the staff?" The staff will say, "What's going to happen to the residents?" So having a solution where they get to go together is certainly an easier path of exiting. So if you've got an older home, I'd be trying to work out where someone might be looking to build, because they will want to be your friend. If you can start a new home with 30 or 40 or 50 residents plus staff, I think they might be very happy to talk to you. And in the instance that we closed that particular home, we actually positive, including refunding rates. So that was a great outcome for us and a brilliant outcome for the staff that were working there and the residents. Just in that sale process, I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer, but for those of you in the not-for-profit space, the advantage you have without paying payroll tax is massive. Our budget for next year, we're budgeting a $5 million payroll tax bill. 6% in Victoria at the moment, including a COVID recovery levy, which really craps me off, but that is what it is given what we endured. As I touched on before, the due diligence process is really nuts. I've spoken to a few people who basically said, if you start this process, and he described it to me as driving a car. You've got the bank sitting next to you, you've got the board sitting in the back seat, and they're going to be with you for the duration. So if you're going through that process, be prepared to communicate your backside off, because everyone's going to want to know what's going on every step of the way. And the amount of data is nuts. And having been approached by another organisation and our board considering a divestment, once you go through that process and include any staff members in that process, it spooks them, particularly exec level teams, because as you go through an acquisition process, if you're the acquiree, I'm pretty confident in just about every circumstance, the exec team will be gone, some of middle management will be gone, all of the operational team will be intact because you can't run the business without them, but it just sort of spooks people. So if you're going to do this process, I would suggest golden handcuffs are a pretty good way of keeping people there to the point where you can get through a successful divestment. And the other thing is just to stick to your knitting. I think it's a relatively risky strategy at the moment. I think growing is probably something that we all need to be considering. But I think in the current environment where a post-Royal Commission and having reviewed other industries post-Royal Commission, consolidation is a really big thing. So if you've got one or two homes and you're trying to survive with all of the regulation and change coming down the line, I don't know how you do that. We've got 10 homes. We can keep up with it, but if we were much smaller, we probably couldn't afford the resources to handle it. So I think if you're a really small home, you might want to really consider whether merging or selling or finding a way to resource all of this stuff is a really important thing to do. And I think just realistically, sticking to your knitting, particularly in the resi space, it's just not a super viable industry. So you need to think about doing things differently. Growth is painful for those of you who remember that particular family. Some of you look a bit too young, but I remember them. That was a cool TV show. The regulatory compliance is significant. And just going through the process, I've been aware of a few transactions recently. And sometimes you just can't imagine the boxes that have to be ticked through an acquisition process, whether it's Treasury or the department or the Commission. There's a lot of people who want to know what's going on and want to tick boxes. Obviously workforce integration is tricky. Having seen our workforce go to another provider, that was challenging for that team. It's a change of culture, basically, where you've got a team of people used to doing things a certain way, and you're pretty much changing their world, whether you're acquiring or selling. And I think realistically, if you think about the culture you have in the workplaces that you have, each of the different workplaces are slightly different as well. So when you've got different sitting on top of different, you start to lose control a little bit as well. I think probably overheads is the biggest one. Just trying to think of at what scale can your current overheads support growth? So we've got 10 homes. I reckon we could service 15 with the infrastructure we've got. But if we went above 15, I think we'd need to significantly increase the resource we have. And I've been lucky enough to speak to a couple of other CEOs who've grown through that period, and that sort of stacks up. I think the next mark is about 30. Sean Bilton's in the room. He can tell you the answer to that question, I'm sure. And then I think the challenges of growth, just that funding. How do you actually fund it? I think we've used RADs really well. So that's been a really key part of our growth. But I think some of the challenges coming through, and even just the thought of perhaps RADs not being there, as something that's spooking us a little bit. I don't think realistically they're going to go away, but just the mere mention of that, I think is enough to spook possibly banks and other investors. There's some friends that we all know and love. I think the Royal Commission probably was something we needed to have. I think the way it was done was horrific. I think just that word, the use of the word neglect was something that was unfair and unreasonable on a workforce and an industry that is largely doing good work. And I think we're increasingly, I even heard Janet Anderson say recently that we are world class. So I struggle to understand how a Royal Commission came out and said the industry as a whole was negligent. Again, post-Royal Commission, that regulatory compliance just turns up. Again, that's standard for Royal Commissions. Every industry that's been through a Royal Commission says the same thing. Apparently we've got to wait till about 7 years for that regulation to start to get undone, and all the nonsensical stuff that we've endured starts to get reversed. So hang in there. And I think the other thing, as I touched on, payroll tax, work cover land tax, they're all things that vary state to state and on obviously company status as well. So we're enduring increased land taxes, increased payroll tax, and everyone's enduring increased work cover. So those sort of changes are really hitting us. And I think just the visits around, particularly the Commission and even work cover now, is something that's spooking workforce. So if you're thinking about growing that and exposing your team to more visits, I'd really challenge you to make sure you've got that regulation piece covered. The people probably that's the biggest part of everything to do with this. The people that we work with all do the job they do because they love the residents they care for and they enjoy the colleagues they work with. So changing their world is something that no one really adapts to change significantly well. So making sure that you're communicating well around how that's going to be handled, and keeping everyone you can, and identifying those people you want to make sure that you keep through this process is really important. As I touched on, the overheads, that's a big one. I think interestingly, I had a conversation with the chairman recently. He, at my request, did a performance appraisal, which I thought was pretty funny, given that I pretty much told him what should be written. But the overheads was something that came up in the conversation. He basically said, "Do you think we could reduce the overheads?" And I pushed back and said, "No, but I think we could probably manage more beds with the overhead we have." So I think that's probably something that we should all consider, and it's business 101. What are those costs that don't directly contribute to the work you do? Are they at a point that you could reduce or alternatively create a bigger business? I think the funding of growth is a really tricky one. I think for those of you who followed the media, I think there was three of the four big banks through the last few years actively opted out of resi aged care. A number of them had said they wouldn't fund small providers, and some of them said they just wouldn't fund the sector. I sat through a presentation in Sydney a little while ago where the CBA talked very positively about the retirement village space. They said they'd be happy to fund in-home care, and they didn't talk about resi, so I'm pretty sure they're still not in the game either. So just finding that money to expand, I think is a little harder than what it was. I feel like that's changing. I think there's a little bit of positivity. I think the recent changes in funding have led perhaps a couple of the banks to be a little bit more optimistic about funding us. But I think that's something you really need to consider. And as I say, using RADs, I hear stories sometimes of organisations that have their entire RAD sitting in a term deposit. I'm like, man, that's insane. You could do so much more good care for so many more people by using those funds to expand your business. The risks pretty much are there. Stakeholder relationships and organisational reputation, they're the big ones. You've got to work out who stakeholders are before you determine how you mitigate the risks, though. And that's my attempt at listing very quickly who our stakeholders are. For each of you, they'll be different, and I'm sure I've missed a lot. So working out who they are is a really big part of working through any strategy around growth, acquisition or divestment. And I think probably that was one of the good things we learned through COVID. We learned to communicate a bit better. So I don't think there's such a thing as over-communication. But if you flip to the other way, it doesn't turn out so well. And that reputational risk's a biggie. I think as an industry we copped. We've all been tarred with a brush. The Royal Commission did that. And I think we're all working, and that's why I put those slides up earlier. Trying to create a positive narrative is a really important thing for us all to do, which will create a better reputation for industry, which will then assist each of us organisationally. And as I say, just keeping all these stakeholders in the loop is important. And being honest, I think that was the other thing that, we've all learned to talk honestly and apologise for mistakes, and I think that's a good thing. But over-communicating and not surprising people is a pretty important part of keeping your reputation intact. Final thoughts. I challenged Janet Anderson to this in a webinar. I basically said, with all the changes coming down the line, is it okay if when you announce a change, we push back and say, that doesn't lead to better care for the residents we look after? And she said, yes, you should. So there you go. I don't know whether I believe her, but she said it. And I think importantly, let's just not keep doing what we've always done. I've been in the industry for quite a while, and I think historically we've said this is what the rules are, this is what government says to do. So we've just done that. That's how we got into this sorry mess. Let's not do that anymore. Let's work out what's the best use of the resources we have to provide the best care we can and do that instead. And the financial viability's got to come first. We can't do what we do if we're bankrupt. So I've heard stories of people blindly putting in care minutes because it's a rule. They're not going to survive. So just think carefully about what you're doing. And if you do those things like that, how long you can survive, and whether that's the best outcome for the residents you care for. As I touched on earlier, the demand is there, the demographics are nuts. If you haven't seen it, Bernie Salt wrote an article a couple of months ago. I think it was 2032 or 33 is the biggest peak in people turning over 85. So demand is on our side. So let's push to meet that. And I think that's the tricky bit. The fact that we're struggling to make this a viable industry when there's so much positivity, and everyone who looks at this industry from the outside says, well, there's no way this could be bad. There's so much demand. And I think the last few points there for me are what keeps me awake at night. I think we are heading to a point where older people won't get the care they deserve or need, whether that's through the inability to find staff in home care space or the lack of beds in resi care. It's a worry. So each of us, I think, have the obligation to try and find ways to boost that supply to meet the demand we know is coming. That is it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Okay, questions from the audience. We've got one back here. Just you and Mike.
Just getting my own back, Tim. Look, Tim, thanks for that. Just curious to understand what you think from decision to merge to truly feeling merged. What kind of time frame would you put on that?
I can talk to the experience. The team we had that we moved, I think they still feel like they're part of us because we get lots of phone calls asking for help. And I think that's the bit. If you've got two organisations, right? I don't think you ever really get rid of the two. There's always parts of it. So I think it's more a matter of saying, what are the bits we want to keep, and let's make sure we keep them to make the sum of the parts better than each of the single. So I don't think you ever really truly merged, Geraldine. And I think that's a good thing.
Thanks for your presentation. I wondered if you looked at things like JVs and some of your growth strategy as well, and where do you think some of the opportunities might be there?
I remember looking at JV about 20 years ago when I worked at a not-for-profit in Melbourne. I think JVs are a really good idea, but I think that's probably a good space to look at. We looked at a property development in that space and said, well, we're not property developers, but we've got land, and that land could be well used for the development of housing for whoever. Didn't get it off the ground, but that's sort of the environment we've looked at. And I think probably the reason it didn't go ahead was just that risk of, the risk of jumping into bed with someone. You really want to know them. And I think that was one of the things in that space when the banks talked to us about growth. They said the best form of growth is building, in their opinion, because you get to control culture. But they also then predicated that by saying you want to make sure you've got a good builder who's not going to go bankrupt as well. So the risks that we face don't just exist inside the industry at the moment. So I think it's a good idea, and I think there's so many different forms of housing and construction and other complementary services we could look at that lend themselves beautifully to a JV environment.
I just want to ask whether you think that commercial banks should be more transparent in terms of sector policy around funding aged care and acquisitions, because growth by acquisition makes sense. And then the other one is probably whether you see the consolidation of the market, which I think Darryl Price at Grant Thornton is quite vocal about, whether you think it's a private equity play as well, because there's certainly opportunities, but I think for them to come in and divest within a certain period of time, I don't know where that is.
Look, I think there's space for money in the sector broadly, because I think we need to grow. I think the thing that concerns me in a minute comes back to that supply piece where we're going to have people that won't find beds. The acquisition of existing players doesn't grow our industry, and I think that's the thing that we need to be doing. So I think if the banks were to try and take perhaps a moral high ground on this, they'd be saying we will support growth that enlarges the industry, perhaps not growth of your business by acquisition. I don't know. And private equity, I mean, those particular organisations, I don't have personal experience, I know a fair bit about them, but I think that model is tricky. In a care-based industry, you've got to be really tricky about wanting to have a real numbers focus around it. I think numbers are really important, but you don't want the numbers to drive the business. You've got to have care driving the business. So that's probably the recipe for me on that one, because as you say, there's a clear end point at acquisition for those guys, and that creates uncertainty for everyone.
Tim, you talked about the detail or the burden of due diligence. What would your advice for people be with regards to resourcing that? And I guess whether the options are to bring in external help, to free up internal resources and backfill. What do you think works to make sure you don't kind of lump more onto busy people?
I think that's a great question. I think there are two things there. I mean, generally what we try and do is grab our people and have them do fun jobs and backfill their day job as a rule. But if you were looking at a large acquisition, you wouldn't have a choice but to get external help, I wouldn't have thought. Just the sheer volume of information, the number of questions, the number of stakeholders, I think you'd have to engage probably PR, all sorts of other people around the periphery to help you get through it. So I don't think you'd have a choice in a big due diligence process but to use experts. But I think you have to also then have your internal people inside it as well in that instance, because you want for your organisation to be a part of that. And I think if you were having been through a few of these things in this industry, people selling a business in this industry want to know where it's going, and they want to know that their business will be looked after in the hands of someone else. So that's a really important part where keeping your people in that process becomes important. So whether it's your clinicians or your ops people going through the homes when those people in suits turn up, that everyone knows someone who's looking to buy you. But I think you've got to keep your people involved in it, absolutely. But you can't avoid using external experts as well in those bigger scenarios.
Fantastic. Let's put our hands together for Tim. Thank you, Tim.